In a dense, emerald forest on the edge of a tranquil river, there lived a clever fox named Felix. His golden red fur gleamed in the sunlight as he trotted proudly through the woods, always plotting his next mischievous adventure. Known among the animals for his wit, Felix also had a reputation for playing tricks, which not all his neighbors appreciated. One autumn morning, a tall, elegant stork named Stella glided gracefully into the forest. Her snowy feathers sparkled in the morning dew, and her long beak tapped gently as she walked. She had traveled far and wide and was known for her wisdom and gentleness. Stella was looking for a peaceful place to restand, perhaps make new friends. Felix saw Stella sipping water at the riverbank and approached with his usual charming grin. "Welcome to our forest," he said with a slight bow. "I'm Felix. You must be tired from your journey. Let me treat you to dinner this evening." Stella was delighted by the warm welcome and gracefully accepted. Felix hurried home to prepare his dinner. But instead of making a proper meal, he mischievously poured some thin soup into two wide, shallow bowls. He chuckled quietly to himself. "Let's see how well she handles this," he murmured. That evening, under the setting sun, Felix served the soup on a flat stone table beneath a willow tree. He licked his lips and dug in eagerly, while Stella looked at her bowl with confusion. Her long, pointed beak couldn't scoop up a single drop. She politely pecked at the liquid but couldn't taste more than a splash. Stella, though hungry, kept her composure. She smiled softly and said, "Thank you for the meal, Felix. How thoughtful of you." Felix grinned smugly and slurped more soup, clearly amused by her struggle. Later that night, Stella perched high on a tree branch and pondered the fox's trick. She wasn't angry after all. She had seen such behavior in other places before. But she believed every lesson deserved a reply. She devised a plan of her own. The next morning, Stella visited Felix's den. "Dear Felix," she said sweetly, "I'd be honored if you would join me for lunch tomorrow." "I have a special dish in mind." Felix's eyes lit up at the thought of a return favor. "Of course, I wouldn't miss it." Stella returned to her nest near the reeds and prepared her favorite meal, fresh fish stew seasoned with herbs. She poured the delicious mixture into two tall, narrow-necked jars, perfect for her long beak but impossible for a fox's short snout. At noon the next day, Stella arranged the jars on a wooden table she had built between two stones. She waited calmly, the sunlight glinting off her feathers. Felix soon arrived, trotting with excitement and licking his lips. When Felix saw the tall jars, his eyes widened. "Oh, interesting choice of dishware," he said, trying to hide his confusion. Stella only smiled and dipped her beak smoothly into the jar, pulling out chunks of fish and sipping the stew with ease. Felix tried to stick his snout into the jar, but couldn't get past the narrow neck. He tilted it, pawed at it, and even tried licking around the rim. But the delicious stew remained out of reach. His stomach growled as Stella gracefully enjoyed her meal. Realizing he had been tricked, Felix sat back with a sheepish grin. "Touché, dear Stella. I suppose I deserved that." Stella looked at him kindly and replied, "Sometimes the best way to understand how others feel is to walk in their shoes or eat from their jar." Felix chuckled, now humbled. "Well played, my friend. I see now how my little joke might not have been so funny to someone else." Stella nodded, not to gloat, but to gently affirm the wisdom of fairness and empathy. With genuine remorse, Felix said, "I'm sorry, Stella. I didn't mean to embarrass you. I just enjoy playing tricks, but I went too far." Stella accepted his apology with a warm look. "We all have something to learn," she said softly. From that day on, Stella and Felix grew closer. They spent hours walking along the riverbank, sharing stories from their travels. Felix discovered Stella's sharp wit, and Stella admired Felix's quick thinking when used kindly. Future meals between them were much more thoughtful. Felix served food in clay bowls with raised edges, and Stella provided dishes everyone could enjoy. They even invited other animals to join, turning mealtimes into joyful feasts. The other animals in the forest watched their friendship grow and learned from their example. Even the trickiest raccoons and the grumpiest owls softened their behavior, inspired by the harmony between the fox and the stork. One evening, as they watched fireflies dance over the water, Felix said, "You know, Stella, I've learned that laughter is best shared, not made at someone else's expense." Stella smiled and said, "And wisdom is best used to teach, not punish." Thus, the story of the fox and the stork lived on, passed down through generations of animals. It reminded all who heard it that kindness, fairness, and empathy are the true spices of friendship, and the best meals are those we share with care. Inspired by the tale, the council decided to create a Forest Code of Friendship, a list of simple principles all animals would follow. The first rule, written in large letters on tree bark, was respect each other's differences. Felix and Stella stood proudly as the new code was read aloud beneath the stars. Felix, once known only as a trickster, started mentoring the young foxes in the forest. He told them stories not just of his cleverness, but of the time he learned humility from a stork. The young foxes listened with wide eyes and asked, "Did the stork really forgive you?" Felix smiled and said, "She did, and that taught me more than any trick ever could." To celebrate their bond, Felix and Stella organized the first annual Feast of Forest Friends. Animals of all shapes and sizes gathered around. Dishes were made with care so that everyone short or tall, furred or feathered could enjoy the food. They played music, danced beneath lantern-lit trees, and laughed together in true harmony. Seasons passed, and the story of the fox and the stork became a cherished legend. Young animals would sit by the fire, listening wide-eyed as elders recounted the tale. Two figures owned with feathers, one with furwear carved into an old oak tree, forever reminding the forest. Even the cleverest minds grow wiser through kindness. One early spring morning, news spread that the river had flooded its banks. Several animal homes near the water were damaged, and food supplies were washed away. Felix, once self-centered, was among the first to volunteer. "Let's rebuild together," he said firmly. And Stella was right beside him, offering her long beak to carry twigs, leaves, and fish. As Felix helped a family of rabbits patch up their burrow, one young bunny whispered, "I thought foxes only cared about themselves." Felix paused and smiled. "Maybe we use Tobut, even foxes can change." The bunny beamed, and the other animals began to see Felix not as a trickster, but a true leader. Later that week, Stella was invited to join a migrating group of storks traveling north. It was a great honor, and the journey promised adventure and learning, but she hesitated. She'd grown close to Felix and the forest animals. That night, she sat by the water, watching her reflection ripple with uncertainty. Felix joined Stella beneath the moonlight. "You should go," he said softly. "The sky is your world. We'll miss you, but you'll always have a place here." Stella's eyes glistened. "You're not just clever anymore, Felix," she said. "You're wise. I'll come back, I promise." They touched wings and paw in a quiet farewell. One dusky evening, as orange hues painted the sky, a young porcupine named Pip waddled nervously into the forest clearing. He had heard tales of the friendly animals and the wise fox, but his prickly appearance had always made others avoid him. Felix spotted him hiding behind a bush and approached gently. "Everyone's welcome here, Pip," he said kindly. Pip was shy at first, unsure how to join the others without causing discomfort. Felix shared the story of Stella's visit and how he once made a mistake that taught him empathy. "Being different is a gift," Felix told Pip, "and kindness builds bridges." Encouraged, Pip began to help others carefully, kindly, and slowly made friends of his own. One bright morning, as the forest buzzed with life, a shadow glided across the trees. The animals looked up to see Stella soaring through the clouds, her wings wide with grace. She landed gently near the willow tree where her friendship with Felix had begun. The forest erupted in cheers, and Felix ran to greet her. "Welcome home," he said, eyes gleaming. That night, around a grand bonfire, the animals celebrated Stella's return. She shared stories of mountain skies and foreign lands, while Felix told of new friendships and lessons learned. As fireflies blinked overhead and laughter echoed through the trees, everyone knew that this forest wasn't just a place to live, it was a place to grow, to forgive, and to belong. True friendship is built on respect, empathy, and fairness. Treat others the way you would like to be treated. What may seem like a harmless joke to you could be hurtful or unfair to someone else. When we take the time to understand others' feelings and needs, we grow wiser and kinder. Kindness, humility, and the willingness to learn from our mistakes are what turn simple connections into lifelong bonds.